There are places that call to the broken. No one knows why, but for those burdened by guilt, pain, or loss, the pull is irresistible. Ashfall was one such place, a ghost town steeped in legends of unearthly horrors. Nestled in the shadow of a dormant volcano, its streets were said to be choked with ash and shrouded in a fog so dense it drowned out even the sun. And somewhere in the heart of the town, they said, rang the crimson bell. The bell wasn't a part of Ashfall's history. It wasn't on any map, nor mentioned in any records. But survivors, if they could be called that, claimed to have heard its toll, a sound that tears at the soul. Ryan Calloway had never believed in ghost stories. A once promising writer turned recluse, he'd spent years haunted by the death of his wife Hannah in a fire he couldn't stop. The guilt was a shadow he couldn't escape. Then came the letter. It arrived without a return address, written in a hand he didn't recognize. She's waiting in Ashfall. Ryan knew better than to chase such a vague message, but something gnawed at him, a voice in his head that whispered, "What if it's true?" He packed his bags and drove north, through endless stretches of barren road, until he saw the ashen fog rising in the distance. The air grew cold as Ryan entered Ashfall. The town was dead. No people, no sound, but the soft crunch of ash beneath his boots. Buildings stood in various states of decay, their windows like black, hollow eyes. The fog swirled unnaturally, pulling him toward the town square. There, rising above the ruins, was a crimson bell tower, its surface streaked with dark stains that looked disturbingly like dried blood. The first toll came without warning. Dong. The sound wasn't just heard, it was felt, reverberating through Ryan's chest, pulling at his memories. In the distance, he saw a shadow move, a figure, unmistakably human, slipping into the fog. Hannah? As Ryan followed, the fog grew thicker, the streets twisting like a labyrinth. Ashfall was changing. Walls appeared where there were none before. Doors led to impossible places. The ground became slick with something dark and wet, and the air was filled with a faint, metallic tang. In an alleyway, Ryan saw them, creatures, human-shaped but wrong. Their skins stretched taut, mouths sewn shut, and hands ending in jagged, rusted claws. They moved with a jerky, unnatural grace, and as they turned toward him, their heads tilted unnaturally. Ryan ran, heart pounding, the bell tolling again, louder this time. He found refuge in what remained of a diner. Inside, the air was thick with rot, the tables covered in ash. On the counter lay a photograph, one he hadn't seen in years, him and Hannah, smiling. The edges were burned. Then came the voice, "Ryan." He spun around. There she was, standing in the fog outside the diner. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. "Why didn't you save me?" she whispered. I tried," Ryan stammered, stepping toward her. But as he reached for her, her face twisted, her jaw unhinging into a gaping maw. Her scream shattered the silence, and the world around him shifted again. The depths of Ashfall. Ryan found himself in a world of rust and shadows. Walls dripped with viscous black liquid. Chains hung from the ceiling, rattling though there was no wind. The fog was gone, replaced by darkness so thick it seemed alive. The creatures were everywhere now, some crawling, others dragging themselves along the ground, their twisted forms moaning softly. They didn't attack, but they watched, their eyeless faces locked on Ryan. The bell tolled once more. Ahead, the crimson tower loomed, its surface pulsating like flesh. At the base of the tower, Ryan found a door. Carved into it were words, "Only the guilty may ascend." Inside, the tower was hollow, a spiral staircase leading upward. Each step brought memories flooding back. Hannah's screams, the fire, his failure to save her. At the top, the bell hung, massive and otherworldly. Beneath it stood a figure, a man in a tattered cloak, his face hidden. "You came," the figure said, his voice a rasp. "You seek redemption, but redemption requires sacrifice." The man gestured toward the bell. "Ring it, offer yourself, and perhaps she will be free." Ryan hesitated. Was this real? Could he trust this figure? He looked at the bell, its crimson surface shimmering with an almost liquid quality. The weight of his guilt pressed down, and he thought of Hannah, her laughter, her kindness, the life they could have had. With trembling hands, Ryan grabbed the bell's rope and pulled. Dong! The sound consumed him. The world dissolved into light and shadow, pain and release. He heard her voice, faint but clear. "Thank you." Ryan woke on the side of a highway, the fog of Ashfall nowhere in sight. He was alive. As he stood, he heard a faint sound in the distance, a bell, tolling once, and then silence. Ashfall was still waiting.